Hello, Mystery Cypher fans. I'm happy to bring you a second mystery creation from the Mystery Cypher channel. I hope you're enjoying our Kelsom Kohler series set in the Sherlock Holmesian style. Stay tuned for more mysteries from him. Now, on to our new show, Mercer, Private Eye. Mercer is a hard-boiled noir mystery series set in 1950s New York, following Calder Cal Mercer, private investigator with a buried past and a stubborn moral code. Each case pulls Mercer deeper into the city of smoke-filled offices, jazz clubs, crooked cops, and powerful men who prefer their secrets to stay dead. Blending classic detective grit with slow-burn suspense, the show delivers atmospheric storytelling, sharp dialogue, and morally complex mysteries, where the truth is never clean and justice always comes at a price. I hope you enjoy.
The Ace of Clubs Matter. Act 1. The stoop, the card, and the clock rain doesn't fall in New York so much as it negotiates. Hard, persistent, like a union man with a grievance and a little time on his hands. It had been working the streets since midnight, polishing the pavement into a black mirror and turning every alley into a confession booth. Up in my office on 47th, the radiator clanged like it was auditioning for a steel band. My ashtray was full, my window was half open to let the smoke out, and my head was half closed to let the world in. I was stretched on the office couch, coat as a blanket, hat as a pillow, conscience as an inconvenience. The building was quiet, the way a graveyard is quiet, not peaceful, just waiting. Then the door downstairs banged like the start of a bar fight. Footsteps came up the stairs fast and angry, the way only one person in my life ever climbed anything. Bunny Ferraro. My office door flew open so hard the frosted glass rattled in its frame. She stood there with her hair pinned up like she'd done battle with a hurricane and won, cheeks pink from the cold, eyes bright with the kind of panic that wore comedy like perfume. "Cal," she yelled, and the word ricocheted off my filing cabinet and came back with interest. "We got a stiff on the stoop." I didn't sit up right away. That's how you invite fate to get comfortable. I turned my face into the couch cushion and tried to bargain with God, or insomnia, or whichever one had jurisdiction at 5 in the morning. "Bunny," I said, voice rough as a sidewalk. "If this is another salesman sleeping it off, tell him to buy a tie that fits and a soul that doesn't leak. Then lock the door." She stomped in, hands on her hips, the very picture of Bronx indignation. Not the usual kind of stiff wise guy. This one's dead, toast, finished, maraschino cherry on top. I sat up then. Not because she said dead. Death is a common visitor on 47th Street. It wanders through like a man looking for a seat at the counter. No, what got me was Bunny's tone. She was trying to keep it light, keep it quick, keep it funny. But there was a tremor underneath it. Bunny was loud when she was happy, louder when she was angry, and loudest when she was scared. She'd learned early that the world listened more when you shouted first. I swung my feet onto the floor and felt the chill travel up my bones like a debt collector. "All right," I said, standing. "Tell me you didn't touch anything." "I touched my coat," she said, offended. "It's cold as a witch's promise out there. But the guy? I didn't touch him. I ain't stupid. I just leaned down, got a good look, and I said, 'Bunny, that fella ain't getting up for work.' I grabbed my hat and slid it on like a mask. You leaned down. From a distance. She wagged a finger at me like she was scolding a child. Don't start with me, Cal. I did the smart thing. You did the bunny thing, I said. Her eyes softened for half a heartbeat. Yeah, and the bunny thing is making sure you don't walk into something that bites. That was Bunny, brass knuckles wrapped in a hug. I shrugged into my coat. My fingers found the cigarettes out of habit, then stopped. I didn't light one. I didn't want the comfort. Comfort makes you careless. I'm grateful, I said, and I meant it. Now stop looking like you're gonna cry and punch somebody at the same time. You're gonna confuse the neighborhood. She snorted. I can multitask. We went down together, Bunny half a step ahead like she wanted to shield me from the bad news, while also making sure she got front row seats to it. The building smelled like damp plaster and old cooking grease. Downstairs, the front door's glass pane was beaded with rain, the city outside blurred into streaks of street lamp gold. Bunny held the door open with one hand and pointed with the other like she was presenting a prize on a game show. "There," she said, "right where your welcome mat used to be. Which, by the way, I told you not to buy. Welcome mats are an invitation. You don't invite this city." I stepped out into the wet morning. The stoop was slick and shining. The gutters gurgled. A taxi hissed by like a snake with a meter. Across the street, a bakery was warming up, yeast and sugar fighting the rain with the only weapon they had, hope. And on my stoop, sprawled like a bad decision, was a man. He was dressed neat, too neat for the hour. Gray suit, white shirt, tie knotted tight like he still believed in rules, shoes polished, the soles barely scuffed. He lay on his back with his arms at awkward angles, as if he'd been placed there carefully, then abandoned. I crouched beside him. The rain ran down the brim of my hat and dripped onto my knuckles. The man's face was pale, lips slightly parted. No bruises, no swelling, no obvious cut. If you didn't know better, you'd think he was asleep. But I knew better. I put 2 fingers to the side of his neck. Cold skin. No pulse. I didn't need the confirmation, but the ritual mattered. It made it real. Bunny hovered behind me, chewing the inside of her cheek. She tried to sound casual, but her voice came out softer. "You okay, Cal?" I didn't look at her. I kept my eyes on the dead man. "Yeah," I said, which was a lie. "You okay?" She snorted again, louder this time, grateful for the lifeline of normal talk. "I'm a peach. I love finding bodies before breakfast. Really sets the mood." I leaned in closer. The man smelled faintly of aftershave and paper. He'd been handled, moved, arranged. The rain had washed away some evidence, but not all. It never does. The city keeps its secrets the way a drunk keeps his promises. Sloppy. Holmes used to say, well, Doyle wrote it and Holmes said it. "You know my methods." I'd read those stories so many times, the pages of my battered copy were soft as cloth. I'd kept it through war, through winters, through the kind of nights when a man needed proof there was logic in the world. Holmes had his pipe. I had my cigarettes. Holmes had his violin. I had the Blue Canary's sax drifting up through the floorboards on nights when I couldn't sleep. Holmes had London fog. I had New York rain. And like Holmes, I had one rule that mattered more than the rest. Observe first, interpret second. I took inventory. The man's collar sat straight. No signs of struggle. Fingernails clean. Hands soft. Accountant hands. Clerk hands. Not the kind that throw punches. There was a faint red mark at his wrist, like a watch had been removed recently, by someone else. A thin smear of grime at the edge of his cuff, inconsistent with the rest of him. His coat was buttoned wrong, top button done, second left open. That's the kind of mistake you make when you're dressing a body in a hurry. I slid my hand toward his breast pocket, careful. Bunny inhaled sharply. "Cal, don't—" "I'm already in it, Bunny," I murmured. "No point pretending I'm not." My fingers pinched paper. I pulled it out. A playing card. White, crisp edges. Hardly touched by the rain because it had been tucked away like a secret. Black ink. A club printed bold and dark. Ace of clubs. For a second, the street went quiet. The rain didn't stop, but it felt like it did. Like the city held its breath and waited for my reaction. The ace of clubs wasn't a gambling token. It wasn't a prank. It wasn't even a threat in the usual sense. It was a signature. A calling card. A wink in the dark. And I knew who liked to wink that way. My throat tightened. Bunny leaned in, squinting. "What, he was headed to poker night?" "No," I said, and the word came out flatter than I wanted. "He was headed to me." She looked at my face then, really looked. Bunny wasn't educated in the fancy sense, but she had a doctorate in reading people. Her smile faded. "Cal," she said quietly. "What does that mean?" I stood up slowly, the card pinched between two fingers like it might burn me. The rain slicked my coat. The city watched. "It means," I said, "somebody wants my attention." "Somebody?" She didn't buy it. "Cal, don't give me that. You got that look like you just saw a ghost." Maybe I did. I tucked the card into my own pocket, like I was hiding contraband. "Go upstairs," I told her. "Make coffee. Strong enough to peel paint." "Cal." "Bunny." Her jaw tightened, but she nodded. She took one step, then paused and pointed at the body, like she couldn't help herself. "You better not get yourself killed before lunch. I got rent to collect and dreams to crush." I watched her go, and I let the warmth of her concern pass through me like a brief sunlight. Then it was gone. I turned back to the corpse. A man delivered to my stoop in a clean suit, with a clean face, and a dirty message tucked in his pocket. The kind of message that came with an invoice. I stepped into the street and looked up and down. 47th. A newsboy on the corner under an awning. A woman with a grocery bag, hurrying like the rain was chasing her. A couple of night owls stumbling home, collars up, sins down. No one looked suspicious. That's how New York does it. Everybody looks guilty, so nobody stands out. I went back inside and used the lobby phone to call the precinct. I didn't have to say my name. They knew my voice. They knew the sort of mornings I collected. "Body on my stoop," I told the desk sergeant. "Send Dugan." There was a pause. Then, "He ain't gonna like this." "He never does," I said, and hung up. Upstairs, Bunny had started the coffee. The smell crept into the stairwell like a promise. While we waited, I stood at my office window and watched the rain. I didn't think about the war. I didn't think about the Alpine village. I didn't think about the file with my name that didn't exist. I didn't think about Byron Hale. Thinking about him was like pressing your tongue to a cracked tooth. You only did it when you wanted to remind yourself pain was real. Bunny shoved a mug into my hand. "Drink," she ordered. I took a sip and nearly coughed my lungs out. "Christ," I rasped. "Did you brew this with tar?" She beamed. "You're welcome." I managed a weak smile. "You're an angel." "Yeah," she said. "Fallen." We didn't have long. Dugan arrived like thunder with paperwork. 2 uniformed cops followed him, and the moment they stepped in, my office shrank. Cops bring the city's weight with them, even honest ones. Lieutenant Mike Dugan filled the doorway. Broad shoulders, tired eyes, hair that had once been black and now looked like it had been arguing with gray and losing. His coat was damp, his hat brim dripping. He took one look at me and sighed like I was a bad habit he couldn't quit. "Mercer," he said, voice thick with Irish irritation. "It's 5 in the goddamn morning." "I didn't pick the hour," I said. "I didn't pick the corpse either." Bunny leaned in from behind my desk, hands on hips. "Lieutenant, you want coffee? It'll put hair on your chest." He looked at her. His expression softened a fraction. "It's already got hair on it, kid." "Then it'll put more," she shot back. Dugan shook his head like Bunny was a mystery he'd stopped trying to solve. Then he looked back at me, eyes narrowing. "Where is he?" "Stoop," I said. I called it in like a good citizen. "Don't sell me that," Dugan growled. "You ain't been a good citizen since Roosevelt was in short pants." "That's unfair," I said. "I was a model citizen for at least 10 minutes in 1946. Bunny snorted, half laugh, half relief. She liked us like this, bickering. It meant the world was still normal enough to argue in. Dugan gestured. "Let's go." We went downstairs together, the uniforms roped off the stoop with a kind of lazy professionalism. Dugan crouched by the body like he'd done it 1,000 times, because he had. He didn't flinch, didn't wince, just studied. Then his eyes flicked up to me. Any idea who he is? Not yet, I said. Dugan grunted. How'd you find him? My secretary, I said, nodding toward Bunny, who hovered at the door with her arms crossed. She's got a nose for trouble. Bunny raised her chin. I also got a nose for pastrami, Lieutenant. I'm multi-talented. Dugan's mouth twitched. Yeah, congratulations. He turned back to the corpse. No wallet, no ID, no obvious cause. You touch him? Checked pulse, I said. That's it. Dugan's eyes slid over me like a searchlight. He'd known me long enough to know when I was holding back. He'd also known me long enough to know I always was. Then one of the uniforms called out. Lieutenant, look at this. Dugan stood. What? The uniform held up something between gloved fingers. Found it in his breast pocket. Dugan's gaze snapped to me. My stomach tightened. The uniform turned the item toward the light. A playing card. Ace of clubs. Dugan didn't react at first. His face stayed flat. But his eyes sharpened. He looked at the card, then at me, then back at the card. Funny, he said slowly, how a dead guy lands on your doorstep with a party favor. I kept my face steady. Maybe he was a magician. Bunny blurted, Oh, for Cal, don't get cute. Dugan ignored her. His voice lowered, dangerous and quiet. That mean anything to you, Mercer? In my head, 1,000 images shuffled like cards. A man's smile in dim light. A handshake that felt like a trap. A voice that sounded like silk over a knife. Byron Hale, the chairman. I didn't say his name. Out loud, I said, It means someone wants to scare me. Dugan's stare didn't blink. And they succeeded, I said. He held my gaze. For a moment, the rain was the only sound. Then Dugan exhaled, slow. He pocketed the card in an evidence envelope, but he did it like he was pocketing a snake. All right, he said. We'll get him to the morgue. Run prints. Canvass the block. But listen to me, Cal. His voice dropped again, and this time it wasn't just cop talk. It was something closer to warning, maybe even concern. You don't get answers quick. I got no choice. You know that, right? I know, I said. He stepped closer. The uniforms pretended not to listen. Bunny pretended to be offended. We all pretended because that's what people do when the truth is too sharp to hold bare-handed. Dugan said, I'm going to be straight with you. This smells like you. Not because you killed him. Thanks, I said dryly. But because Trouble likes your address. And if Trouble likes your address, my captain's going to want me to pin it on you just to shut the file. I swallowed. What do you want from me, Mike? He hesitated. It was subtle, just a fraction of a second too long. In that pause, I saw the thing he didn't say. I saw a man who didn't want to believe the worst about me. A man who wanted, God help him, to be my friend. But he wore his badge like armor, and friendship was the one thing you didn't admit to in his line of work. I want the truth, he said finally, and I want it yesterday. You'll get it, I said. He snorted. Yeah? You got a timetable? I held his eyes. 48 hours. Dugan blinked once. Then he nodded like he'd just taken a bad deal because it was the only deal in town. 48, he said. After that, Mercer, I don't care if you're holding the Ark of the Covenant. You're coming in. Fair, I said. It ain't fair, Bunny muttered. It's bull. Bunny, I said, and she shut her mouth with a glare. Dugan straightened, barking orders to the uniforms. The body was lifted onto a stretcher, covered, rolled away like it was just another piece of trash the city wanted out of sight. But I knew better. This wasn't garbage. This was a message. And I'd been in enough wars, official and unofficial, to know what messages like this meant. Move. Or be moved. Back upstairs, my office felt smaller. The rain tapped the window like impatient fingers. Bunny paced near the filing cabinet like a caged cat. Dugan lingered in the doorway a moment after his men left. He didn't look at Bunny. He didn't look at the desk. He looked right at me. Low, so only I could hear, he said, "You got something you want to tell me, Cal? You can tell me now. It's just you and me." My mouth went dry. There it was. The private hope in his eyes. The one he'd never confess to even if you put a gun to his head. "Please, let me help you like a friend, not like a cop." But I had learned a long time ago that secrets were heavy and friends were fragile, and I had no right to put my weight on his shoulders. So I shook my head. "Not yet," I said. Dugan's jaw tightened. He nodded once, stiff. "Yeah," he said. "Not yet." He turned to go, then paused at the door. 48 hours, he reminded me. Louder now, badge voice back on. "Don't make me come back with cuffs." "I won't," I said. He left. Bunny waited until his footsteps faded down the stairs. Then she came to stand beside me. "You're going to get yourself killed," she said, not joking now. I lit a cigarette this time. The flame shook a little in my hand. I hated that. I hated my hand for betraying me. "Maybe," I said. Bunny's eyes shone with anger and worry, mixed so tight you couldn't separate them. "Cal, that card, that ain't normal. I know normal. Normal is you forgetting to pay the electric. Normal is you eating a stale donut for dinner. Normal is not dead guys showing up like deliveries." I exhaled smoke and watched it curl into the air like a confession I wouldn't make. "You ever read Sherlock Holmes?" I asked her. She blinked. "The guy with the funny hat?" "He doesn't wear a funny hat as much as people think," I said. Bunny crossed her arms. "Cal." I nodded toward my desk drawer. In the stories, there's always a moment when something small tells you the whole shape of the problem. A footprint, a cigar ash, a smear of mud, something everybody else overlooks. She stared at me. "And what's your footprint, Professor?" I tapped ash into the tray, slow. The suit, the shoes, the clean hands, the wrong-buttoned coat, the watch mark, and the ace of clubs. Bunny frowned. "That's a lot of something small." I shook my head. "It's one thing. He didn't come here on his own." She swallowed. "So somebody brought him." "Somebody placed him," I corrected. "Like a package." "And the card?" I looked out at the rain-slick city, at the blurred lights, at the morning trying to be born. "The card," I said softly, "is the return address." Bunny's voice dropped. "Whose?" I didn't answer. Not because I didn't know, because saying it out loud felt like inviting him into the room. And Byron Hale didn't need invitations. He owned the building. I ground out the cigarette. "All right," I said, and forced my voice back into motion. "We got 48 hours. That's 2 days. That's 1 good night's work and 1 bad morning." Bunny lifted her chin. "You ain't doing it alone." "Bunny," she jabbed a finger at my chest. "I'm your secretary. That means I file papers, and I also file plans. And my plan is you don't get buried without me complaining to the landlord first." Despite everything, a laugh slipped out of me. Small, cracked, but real. "Fine," I said. "But you stay where I can see you." "Like I'm your kid sister," she scoffed. "Like you're the only thing in this office that keeps me human," I said. That shut her up. She blinked fast, then turned away, like she had dust in her eye. "Yeah," she muttered. "Well, don't get mushy. It's disgusting." I went to my desk and pulled open the drawer. My battered copy of The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes lay there, spine broken, pages worn. I ran my thumb along the edge. Holmes had his London. I had mine. And I had a corpse on my stoop with an ace in its pocket and a cop with a clock on my back. I opened the book at random. A line stared up at me like it'd been waiting. When you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. I closed it gently. All right, I said to Bunny. First thing, Dugan's gonna get a name. When he does, we find out where the dead man worked, where he drank, who he owed, who he feared. Bunny nodded. Business now. And the ace? I slid my cigarette case into my coat pocket. The ace tells me this ain't just a murder. It's a conversation. Bunny's eyes narrowed. Between who? I looked at the rain again. Between me, I said, and a man who doesn't like being ignored. The city outside hissed and glowed, and somewhere in it, maybe in a warm office, maybe in a dry car, maybe in a place where the lights never flickered, someone had decided to remind me that my past wasn't dead. It was just patient. Knack 2. Names, numbers, and men who don't like questions. New York doesn't give up answers so easy. You don't ask politely. You corner them in dark rooms, lean close, and wait for them to crack. Sometimes they talk. Sometimes they bleed. Either way, you listen. The body was gone by the time the sun decided to show its face, but the questions it left behind were already multiplying like roaches in a tenement kitchen. I lit another cigarette and stared at my desk like it might confess first. Bunny stood at the filing cabinet rifling through old invoices with the enthusiasm of a raccoon in a pantry. She was humming something low and off-key, her way of pretending she wasn't worried. Okay, she said, not looking up. If I'm a dead guy who don't want to be found, I don't wear a suit that costs more than my rent, unless I want somebody to know I had money. Which means he wasn't hiding, I finished. He was advertising. She snapped her fingers. Exactly. You see? I pay attention. I exhaled smoke and watched it curl around the ceiling fan. Advertising what, though? That he mattered, she said. Or that he thought he did. That was good. Better than good. Holmes again. The little things are infinitely the most important. Bunny never read Holmes, but she lived him. She noticed the human part first. Always did. The phone rang. I answered on the second ring. Mercer. Dugan's voice came through, tight and clipped, like he was holding something sharp in his teeth. Got a name? I straightened. Talk to me. Martin Kellerman, he said. 46, single, no priors, worked downtown, accountant. The word hit like a knuckle to the ribs. Accountant. I closed my eyes and let the facts line up in my head like dominoes. Clean suit, soft hands, no wallet, no signs of struggle. Delivered like a message. Ace of clubs. Who'd he work for? I asked. There was a pause. Not long, but long enough. That's the funny part, Dugan said. On paper, a dozen shell companies with names like Hudson Import and Export and Mariner Holdings. Real respectable. And off paper? I said. Another pause. Longer this time. Off paper, Dugan said quietly. They all funnel back to the same place. I didn't say the name. I didn't have to. Bunny watched my face. She knew. Dugan cleared his throat. Look, Cal, I ain't making accusations. Not yet. But this guy's been doing books for Hale's outfit for years. Laundering, smoothing, moving money where it don't leave fingerprints. I pinched the bridge of my nose. So, why's he dead now? That's what I'm asking you. I don't know, I said. But if he's an accountant, then the murder weapon wasn't a knife or a gun. It was numbers. Bunny mouthed numbers? At me. I nodded. He found something. Or took something. Or planned to. Dugan sighed. You got any idea how many people would kill to keep Hale's books clean? I got a pretty good imagination, I said. Yeah, he muttered. So do I. I could hear the precinct behind him, phones ringing, typewriters clacking, the low hum of bureaucracy pretending it was order. Mike, I said, you find any personal connections? Family? Got a sister in Queens, elementary school teacher. Clean as they come. Says he'd been nervous lately. Thought he was being followed. Told her he was thinking about getting out. That clinched it. Men don't get out of Hale's world. They get buried under it. All right, I said. Thanks. Don't thank me yet, Dugan snapped. You're walking into a furnace, Cal, and I don't like playing fireman for ghosts. I'll bring marshmallows, I said. He didn't laugh. The line went dead. Bunny crossed her arms. He's scared. He should be, I said. So should you. I stood and grabbed my coat. I am. She blinked. Then why you moving like you ain't? Because fear's only useful if you keep it on a leash. I headed for the door. She followed. Where you going? She demanded. To see how an accountant lives. Kellerman's apartment was in a brick walk-up on the Lower East Side, the kind of place that smelled like boiled cabbage and regret. The hallway light flickered like it had a nervous condition. I picked the lock easy. Accountants don't invest in security. They invest in silence. Inside, the place was neat to the point of obsession. Furniture aligned, books squared, not a dust bunny in sight, which meant someone else had already been there. Drawers open, but not dumped. Desk tidy, but too tidy. The kind of clean that comes from hands that know what they're looking for. Holmes again. There is nothing more deceptive than an obvious fact. I knelt by the radiator. There was a faint scorch mark on the wall behind it. Bingo. I twisted the valve, grunted, and leaned my shoulder in. The panel popped loose with a hiss of dust and heat. Behind it, charred ledger pages. Not all of them. Just enough to say someone tried to erase history and ran out of time. I flipped through the surviving pages, columns of numbers, dates, initials, and names that didn't belong together. Judges, councilmen, unions, dock companies. The city laid out in ink like a body on a slab. I heard footsteps outside, not heavy, not casual, professional. I killed the light and flattened against the wall just as the door creaked open. 2 men stepped in, silhouettes against the hall glow. One big, one mean. Both wearing coats that hid weapons like secrets. Place looks clear, the big one said. Yeah, the other replied. Boss says check again. Boss. Not Hale. Never Hale. The chairman never sent messages himself. He sent echoes. I waited until they passed me. Then I moved. The first punch dropped the smaller one before he could breathe in surprise. The big one swung wide. I slipped inside and drove an elbow into his ribs hard enough to rearrange his opinions. He grunted, stumbled, reached for his coat. I hit him again. Both men went down. I stood over them, chest heaving, rain from outside still clinging to my coat like a reminder. Tell Hale, I said quietly, that if he's got something to say to me, he can say it himself. The big one laughed, blood in his teeth. You don't tell the chairman nothing. I leaned closer. Then who do I tell? His smile faded. He swallowed. The ace, he said. That's all you get. I knocked him out. Outside, the city kept moving, always does. Back at my office, Bunny was waiting, worry etched deep. I dropped the ledger fragment on my desk. Her eyes widened. Cal? Yeah, I said. That's the city in black and white. She swallowed. And the danger? I lit a cigarette and stared at the numbers. The danger, I said. Just started asking questions back. Somewhere uptown, in a place where the lights didn't flicker, a man with a soft voice and a hard smile was being told his accountant had talked, and that Calder Mercer was awake. Act 3. The ledger bleeds, And so do the messengers. By the time the ledger fragment hit my desk, it already felt heavier than paper ought to. Not because of what was written on it, but because of what it promised. Numbers don't lie. They just sit there and wait for you to understand what they're accusing. Bunny stared at the pages, like they might start talking back. "Cal," she said softly, "this ain't just bad. This is big." "Yeah," I said. "Big enough to get a man killed twice. Once for stealing it, once for letting it exist." She hugged herself, then straightened like she'd caught herself being afraid. "What now?" I rubbed my jaw and let my mind slip into that quiet place. The one I'd learned overseas, where panic got you buried and thinking got you out. Holmes again, tapping the side of my skull like an old professor. Facts first, emotion later. "All right," I said. "Kellerman steals or copies part of Hale's ledger. He panics. He plans to run or talk. Hale finds out. Kellerman dies." "Okay," Bunny said. "But what about the 2 mugs you dropped on the floor downtown?" "They weren't there to kill me," I said. "If they wanted me dead, I wouldn't be standing here admiring your filing system." She snorted despite herself. "Damn right." "They were there to retrieve," I went on. "Which means Hale didn't know where the ledger was at first. He knew Kellerman had it. He didn't know Kellerman was already dead on my stoop." Bunny's eyes widened. "So the body was—" "Mesatasawarikasen." "Sent before the problem was finished," I said, "which means somebody screwed up. And Hale didn't tolerate mistakes." The phone rang again, sharp and angry, like it had a temper. I picked it up. "Mercer." Dugan didn't bother with hello. "Where are you?" "At work," I said. "Where are you?" "Pier 19, he said. "And I don't like what I'm looking at." My stomach sank. "Tell me," I said. "2 males, he said. "Both known associates of Hale's. Vito Marino and Sal Henaro. Execution style. Clean shots. No brass left behind." I closed my eyes. Holmes's voice, calm, infuriatingly calm, floated up from memory. "When a crime is particularly clever, you may be sure it is particularly clumsy." Hale didn't do clumsy. "So," I said carefully, "they got what they came for." "Looks like it," Dugan said. "Both had torn ledger pages in their pockets. Same handwriting as what we found in Kellerman's place." "Which means they retrieved the missing pages," I said, "then met someone who didn't want them walking away with proof they'd touched it." Dugan exhaled. "That someone wasn't you." "No," I said. "If it was, they'd be in my office complaining." There was a pause on the line. Wind, water, distant shouting. Then Dugan said quietly, "You ever notice, Cal? Every time Hale's name comes up, bodies start stacking like cordwood?" I didn't answer. He continued anyway. "I've been doing this job a long time. I know coincidence from choreography. This feels like choreography." "You always liked dancing," I said. "Cut it out," he snapped. Then, softer, "You're in the middle of this whether you like it or not." "I know." "Then help me," he said. "Off the record, man to man." There it was again, that hope, that dangerous human thing. I looked at Bunny. She watched me like she already knew what I wasn't going to say. "I will," I said finally. "But not with everything. Not yet." Dugan swore under his breath. "Christ, Mercer. One day that secret of yours is going to bury us both." "Yeah," I said. "But not today." He hung up without another word. I set the phone down and leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling fan as it cut the air into useless pieces. Bunny broke the silence. "Those 2 guys, somebody cleaned them up." "Yeah," I said. "And that somebody works for Hale." She frowned. "But why kill your own men?" "Because Hale doesn't punish failure," I said. "He removes loose ends." I stood and paced. "The muscle gets the ledger pages. That's their job. Then Hale sends a cleaner. Not to help them, but to make sure nobody can trace the retrieval back to him. Bunny's voice dropped. Including you. I nodded. And the ace? She asked. The ace is for me, I said. Always was. It tells me Hale knows I'm looking. It tells me he remembers who I used to be. I didn't say OSS. Didn't say ghost. Some words stay buried because digging them up poisons the ground. The office door creaked. My hand went instinctively to the gun I kept in the bottom drawer. Then Lou stepped in, rain on her coat, eyes sharp with worry and something darker underneath. Cal, she said, you didn't come by last night. I was busy, I said. You hear about it already? Everybody's hearing, she said. 2 men dead on the pier, and people asking questions about you. Bunny stiffened. Who? Luz shook her head. Men who don't smile. Men who don't ask twice. That cinched it. Hale wasn't just aware anymore. He was moving. I crossed to Luz and touched her arm. Gentle. You okay? She nodded, but her eyes told a different story. Cal, whatever this is, it's circling closer. I believed her. Because Hale always circled before he struck. He liked his prey to know it was being watched. Holmes again, quiet, relentless. There is a criminal element that thrives on the fear of anticipation. I made my decision. All right, I said, we go on offense. Bunny blinked. We? I smiled thinly. You got a better plan? She cracked her knuckles. Nope. I turned to Luz. You stay out of sight. Blue Canary, back door only. If anyone asks for me. I don't know you, she finished. I'm good at that. It hurt, hearing it out loud, but it was necessary. I grabbed my coat. Where you going now? Bunny asked. To Pier 19, I said. Hale cleaned his mess too neatly. Means he left something behind he thinks nobody will notice. Bunny tilted her head. And you will. That's the idea. As I headed for the door, the ledger fragment peeked out from my desk like a dare. I stopped, picked it up, slipped it into my inside pocket, close to my heart. Because if Hale wanted it that bad, it was worth more than my life. And that meant I was closer than I'd been in years. Somewhere in the city, a man with a velvet voice was being told, Mercer is thinking again. And that made him dangerous. Act 4. The pier, the cleaner, and the name I buried piers are honest places. They don't pretend to be safe. They don't pretend to be clean. They just sit there at the edge of the city, rotting slowly, watching everything come and go. If New York ever had a conscience, it drowned it right here and never bothered to fish it out. Pier 19 squatted over the river like a bad memory. Sodium lights buzzed overhead, sickly yellow, casting shadows long enough to hang yourself with. The water slapped the pylons below, black and oily, whispering about all the things it had swallowed and never given back. 2 men had died here an hour earlier, which meant 3 things were true. The place had already been scrubbed. Whatever mattered was small. Someone thought they were smarter than the tide. I kept my coat collar up and my hat brim low and walked like I belonged. Slow, unhurried, just another man with nowhere better to be. That's rule 1 in this town. If you move like prey, you die like prey. Holmes again, calm as ever in the back of my head. It is a capital mistake to theorize before one has data. So I watched. The warehouse doors were shut. 2 shut. No padlock, no guards, no police tape anymore. The uniforms had cleared out, done their job, gone home to warm meals and arguments. But the silence wasn't natural. Silence is a sound, if you know how to listen. I stepped closer to the water and crouched where the bodies had been found. The rain had done its best to wash things clean, but rain is lazy. It never finishes the job. A scuff mark on the concrete, wrong angle for a fall. A cigarette butt crushed under a boot heel. Foreign brand, expensive, imported. Not dockworker trash. I picked it up with my handkerchief. French. Hale liked his men well-dressed and well-fed. He believed poverty made people sloppy. The ledger fragment pressed against my ribs inside my coat, warm from my body heat. I could almost feel it pulsing, like it knew where it was and didn't like it. That's when I heard the footsteps. Not rushed, not heavy, measured. I straightened slowly, letting my shoulders relax, letting my breathing settle. A man who knows he's in danger doesn't show it. He lets the other guy wonder. "Cold night," a voice said behind me. Smooth, polite, educated. The kind of voice that made promises sound reasonable. I didn't turn around. "Depends who you're waiting for," I said. Footsteps stopped about 10 feet back. Smart distance. Close enough to talk. Far enough to shoot. "You always were careful," the voice said. "That's why you lasted." That tightened something in my chest. Nobody used were, unless they'd known me a long time. "Funny," I said. "I don't remember introducing myself." A soft chuckle. "You didn't have to." I turned then. He stood under the light like he'd been painted there. Mid-30s, lean. Gray coat tailored just enough to tell you he cared. Hat pulled low, but not hiding. Never hiding. His hands were empty and visible. Fingers relaxed. A professional. Not muscle. A cleaner. "You're trespassing," I said. "City property." He smiled faintly. "So are you." I studied him the way Holmes would have, starting at the shoes. Italian leather. No scuffs. The coat. Expensive wool. Dry despite the damp air. He hadn't walked far. "Where'd you come from?" I asked.
"Over there," he said, nodding vaguely, "and before that somewhere you wouldn't enjoy. Try me." His smile faded just a touch. "Africa was hot. That did it. The river seemed to rush louder. I felt the past stir. The dust, the heat, the screams swallowed by jungle air. I kept my kife still." "A lot of people went to Africa." "Yes," he said, "but not everyone came back a ghost." The word landed heavy between us. Ghost, my OSS handle. Scrubbed. Buried. Officially never existed. I let the silence stretch until it got uncomfortable. Then I spoke. "You tell Hale, he's got a funny way of saying hello." The cleaner tilted his head. "The chairman prefers symbolism." "Yeah," I said. "He always did like playing cards instead of showing his hand." The man stepped a little closer, not threatening, testing. "You found something," he said. "Something that doesn't belong to you." "Depends who you ask." "I'm asking." "And I'm saying no." That's when he moved. Fast. Too fast for a man who didn't mean business. I barely had time to shift my weight before his fist came in low, sharp, aimed for the ribs. I blocked it, felt the impact rattle my arm, and countered with an elbow that caught air. He smiled, even as he stepped back. "Still good," he said. "But you hesitate more." "Age does that," I growled. "No," he said. "Guilt does." We circled each other, boots scraping wet concrete, the river watching like it always does. "You killed your own men," I said, keeping him talking. "That how Hale thanks loyalty?" He shrugged. "They outlive their usefulness." "You ever worry you'll do the same?" His eyes flickered. "Just for a heartbeat." Holmes would have smiled. "You didn't come here to kill me," I said. "If you had, I'd be floating already." "True," he said. "I came to see if you were still you." "And?" Another faint smile. "Unfortunately." That's when he drew the gun silence. Black. Clean. I dove as the shot cracked the air, not loud, just angry. The bullet chipped concrete where my head had been. I rolled, came up with my own gun out, fired once. He vanished behind a stack of crates. We moved then. Fast. Violent. Efficient. No shouting. No speeches. Just two men who knew the rules and were trying to bend them without breaking their own necks. I flanked wide, using the shadows, letting the light work against him. He fired, again. Missed. I felt the wind of it pass my ear. I lunged. We collided hard. His shoulder slammed into my chest, knocked the breath out of me. We went down together, skidding on wet concrete. The gun clattered away. We grappled, hands, elbows, knees. He was trained. So was I. But training fades. Instinct doesn't. I drove my thumb into his throat. Not enough to kill, enough to convince. He gasped, eyes wide. "Tell Hale," I hissed. "This is the last message I take from him." He coughed, a wet, ugly sound. Then he smiled again, bloody, crooked. "He knows," he rasped. "That's why he sent me." I slammed his head into the concrete. Hard. He went limp. I staggered back, lungs burning, rain mixing with sweat on my face. The river smelled stronger now, iron and rot. I bent, picked up his gun and checked the chamber. Then I searched him. No wallet, no ID, just one thing in his inside pocket. A business card. Plain. White. No name. Just a symbol, embossed in black ink. A club. Not the ace. Just the suit. My stomach twisted. Hale wasn't finished talking. He was just getting more personal. I pocketed the card and limped away before the pier could decide to collect another body. Behind me, the cleaner breathed. Barely. Alive. Which meant Hale had let him live. Which meant Hale wanted me to know how close I'd come. Back in the car, my hands shook when I lit a cigarette. Not from fear. From memory. Africa. Mountains. Snow. A village that never made it into any report. A man who'd shaken my hand afterward and called me useful. Byron Hale didn't forget. And he didn't forgive. The radio crackled with late-night jazz as I drove back toward Midtown, the city sliding past like a dream that refused to end. I had the ledger. I had the card. And I had a clock running out faster than Dugan's patience. Worst of all, I had Hale's attention, which was the one thing I'd spent 10 years avoiding. The rain followed me all the way home. Act 5. 48 hours, one truth, and the price of knowing the city always sounds different just before dawn. It's quieter but not peaceful, like a man who stopped talking because he's decided something. The rain had finally quit by the time I got back to my office, leaving the street slick and reflective. Every puddle a broken mirror. I unlocked the door and stepped inside, carrying the night with me. Bunny was asleep on the couch, coat still on, hat pulled down over her eyes, shoes kicked off like she'd lost an argument with gravity. She'd waited, of course she had. Bunny Ferraro didn't abandon ship even when it was already taking on water. I shut the door gently and stood there a moment, watching her breathe. That was the thing about people who cared. They gave you something to lose. I crossed to my desk and laid everything out. The ledger fragment, the business card with the club symbol, the ace of clubs, now sealed in a police envelope I'd borrowed from Dugan's evidence locker hours earlier and quietly returned empty. Holmes had his Baker Street table. This was mine. "All right," I muttered. "Talk to me." I spread the ledger pages under the desk lamp. The light carved shadows across the numbers made them feel alive. Dates, transfers, initials, repeating patterns. Patterns don't shout. They whisper. You have to lean in. Kellerman had been careful. Too careful. He didn't just keep books. He annotated them. Tiny pencil marks in the margins. Symbols, circles, crosses, not notes, flags. My mind slid into that familiar groove, the one that scared people who didn't know me well. The place where time slowed and the world narrowed to essentials. Holmes again, relentless as ever. The mind rebels at stagnation. Give it problems, give it work. All right. Problem. Why kill Kellerman before retrieving the ledger? Answer. Because Kellerman wasn't the problem. The ledger was. Hale hadn't been worried about what Kellerman knew. He'd been worried about who Kellerman might give it to. I traced a finger down a column of dates. One jumped out. A week ago. A transfer marked with a symbol instead of initials. A club. Not Hale's mark. Someone else's. I sat back slowly. That's it, I whispered. Bunny stirred. What's it? She pushed herself upright, rubbing her eyes. Please tell me. It means breakfast and not bullets. I looked at her, really looked. You ever hear of a thing called an insurance ledger? I asked. She yawned. Sounds like something that makes rich people richer and poor people tired. Close, I said. It's what you keep when you don't trust your boss. It's proof you only use if you need protection. Her eyes sharpened. Kellerman was building leverage. Yeah, I said. And Hale found out. She frowned. Then why leave pieces of it behind? Why let his own muscle die with pages on him? Because Hale didn't want the ledger destroyed, I said. He wanted it controlled. I tapped the business card with the club symbol. He sent the muscle to recover the pages Kellerman hid. Then he sent the cleaner to erase the trail. But he left me alive. Bunny swallowed. Why? I met her gaze. Because Hale doesn't just kill enemies, I said. He recruits them. The room felt colder. He wanted to see if I'd put the pieces together, I went on. If I was still sharp, still dangerous, still worth bringing back into the fold. Bunny shook her head hard. No. No way. You ain't. I know, I said quickly. I'm not going back. But Hale needed to know whether I could. Silence settled in like dust. The phone rang. Once. Twice. I let it ring a third time before picking up. Mercer, I said. Dugan didn't waste breath. You got something, he said. Not a question. Yeah. Good, he said. Because my captain's breathing down my neck, and the mayor's office just called asking why 2 of Hale's boys are dead on a pier. That's so. That's so, he said. And I'm officially out of patience. I closed my eyes. Mike, I said. You ever play cards? Don't start. You know what an ace means? Silence. Then, high card. Also means 1, I said. As in, alone. As in the piece that can change the whole game. Another pause. Longer. You're saying this dead accountant was holding the ace? He was, I said. And Hale wants to know what I'm going to do with it. Dugan's voice dropped. You gonna tell me what this is really about, Cal? This was it. 48 hours were up. I looked at Bunny. She didn't nod. She didn't shake her head. She trusted me to choose. There's a man, I said carefully, who runs this city without ever showing his face. You know his name. You don't know his reach. I know Hale, Dugan snapped. Everybody knows Hale. You know the version he lets you know, I said. I know the one he was before. I could almost hear Dugan leaning back, rubbing his eyes. You and him, he said slowly. You got history. Yes. War history? Yes. And you didn't think that mattered. I thought it was buried. Then quietly. Is that why you're still breathing? Yes. Dugan swore, long and low. You should have told me, he said. I still am. Another pause, then. All right. Off the books. What do you need? That hit harder than a punch. Time, I said. And one thing. What? Let me place the ledger where Hale can't touch it. And where's that? I smiled grimly. Right under his nose. The handoff happened at noon, in a place Hale would never dirty with his presence. A courthouse. Not inside. Not officially. On the steps. I wore my best suit. I looked like a man with something to confess and nowhere else to go. The ledger fragment sat inside my coat, warm against my chest. Dugan stood off to the side, pretending to read a paper. Across the street, a car idled. Black, polished, too clean. A man stepped out, not the cleaner, someone higher up, someone who smiled like he practiced. He approached, slow, confident. "Mr. Mercer," he said, "the chairman sends his regards." "I'll send him back," I said. "Postage due?" He smiled wider. "You have something that belongs to us." I leaned in just enough for him to hear me. "No," I said. "I have something that belongs to everyone." I stepped past him and handed the ledger to a court clerk I'd never met before. "Anonymous submission," I said. "Fraud? Racketeering? Judicial bribery?" The clerk blinked. "Sir." "Take it," I said, "or read about yourself later." He took it. Across the street, the smile slid off the man's face. He said nothing, just nodded once. Hale had gotten the message. That night back in my office, the rain started again, soft this time, almost polite. Bunny poured 2 drinks without asking. "To not dyin'," she said. "To not dyin'." I agreed. Luce came by later, quiet, careful. She kissed my cheek and didn't ask questions. Some people know when silence is safer. Dugan stopped in last. He didn't have his badge face on. "You just declared war," he said. I shrugged. "He started it years ago." He studied me, then sighed. 48 hours, he said. "You cut it close. Always do." He headed for the door, then paused. "Cal," he said, not turning around. "One day you're going to tell me the whole story." "Yeah," I said. "One day." He left. I went to my desk and opened the drawer. The Holmes book lay where it always did. I ran my fingers over the worn cover. Hale had played his ace. So had I. And the game was finally on. Outside, the city kept breathing. Inside, I poured another drink. Because in New York, you don't win against men like Byron Hale. You just survive long enough to make it interesting.
Thanks for listening to the Ace of Clubs Matter on Mystery Cipher Channel. Join us again. Like, follow, and share.